nice, comfortable talking situation.
Yeah. I didn't have to move.
Usually the proximity's a bit closer, but it's like, all right, yeah, it's fine. It's backstage.
Yeah, but you can be in my shot, too. They can see your profile.
Oh, I'm the camera hog. I'm the interview hog. Let's be honest, this interview's about me. It's not about...
Isn't it always?
We had a long discussion about that beforehand, and no, it's not.
You did?
Yeah.
With who?
With him.
You guys talked about you. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it supports my theory.
Son of a bitch.
That's BS. That doesn't hold water, what I just said, but...
Chris Cornell, back with a new record called Higher Truth, and it's a fantastic record.
Oh, thank you.
I think you're getting a lot of applause and accolades from this one.
Yeah, it seems very well received.
Yeah.
Most importantly by fans, and I kind of felt confident about, you know, the most of the way through. You know, I felt like it was kind of born from the songbook touring, you know, the solo acoustic touring, and wanting to feel like that became such a special thing for me, and being able to do all the other things I do, especially Soundgarden, and then be able to bifurcate the time between the two, where it's two really completely opposite things, has been really a blessing, and it's you know, there's no confusion for me creatively, nor for my fans. So I wanted to make the songbook touring like a living thing, as opposed to always a look back.
Yeah.
And wrote this album really in support of that.
Yeah, that nostalgia, I know that can be tricky, especially for an artist who's kind of so associated with an era, you know, for better or worse. I know that's a tricky thing for the longevity of a career, that you have to, I guess you have to consciously ignore that, and you have to try to, you know, get past
I think there's a healthy way to do it, and then there's the sort of bully way to do it, which is you write a new album, and then you go out and you tour, and you refuse to play anything but that.
Oh, right.
And I think, for me anyway, my experience is that doing both is great. You know, I don't, or at least I haven't up to now believed in the idea that when people buy a ticket to see you perform, that you not give them at least a little of something that you know that they're going to want.
Right.
And I know in the context of these solo acoustic tours, because they're screaming it at me, you know, I can hear them. There are no amps to like drown it out. And
I'm sure it only gets comical if they start yelling Ty Cobb or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that happens every night. You know, they're yelling a song that's not going to happen. You know, it's ridiculous to yell for, but I think that it's in the spirit of something good. And regardless of what I do, even during my first songbook tours where I was playing songs from Scream, very supportive of everything that I played. You know, it didn't matter. And on this tour, definitely, you know, supportive of the new material, and happy to hear other material. So it's, you know, I feel like there's a good balance that I strike, and there's no predicting, you know. It's once you you're sort of constantly infusing a tour with new material, and you're sort of opening up the ears to it. It is a living, breathing thing, and that living, breathing thing it can have a history. That's fine. I'm lucky that I have it, you know. So.
Well, I know you're doing a dual thing too right now, because Euphoria Morning's got the re-release. That hasn't happened yet, I don't think. Or
it did.
It did just happen. Okay.
2 weeks ago.
So how on hand were you for that? Like, was this a thing where you had to listen to Euphoria Morning over again, and did that have any influence per se, like having to concentrate on that era of your life, as we're talking about nostalgia, you know, on this new record?
No, the only thing it did, you know, for me was I think there was an essence of convenience to it, where the record company looked at it as, okay, we have this in our catalog, and Chris is putting out a new solo album, and this is his first one, and people love it, and so we'll press it to vinyl because we never did before.
Just anything they can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get it. You know, it's an investment they made 15 years ago. So it's on those books from 15 years ago. Why not? You know, and people. It's actually the one thing people will buy music for, is to buy it on vinyl.
I'm guilty of it. I've went looking for it already. So
yeah. So I understand, and it also helped me because it's sort of come back into discussions, particularly in chat rooms and and viral stuff which I've seen, and it also gave me the opportunity to kind of adjust a couple things that I had wanted to for years. But I got to see kind of simultaneously with the reception of Higher Truth, I got to see a lot of people talking about how important that album was for them. Yeah. And I think that all of that kind of positive energy is sort of elevated everything. And so, I was happy with it. I think it was a good thing for them to do.
Yeah. Well, on the subject of Higher Truth, I've heard you talk about really wanting to make this a storytelling album. And I've also heard you say, and I couldn't figure out if you were being sarcastic or not, that like half the record's about your wife.
I think that half of all my records are
well, I looked at that.
My wife, at least. Everyone if I look back and kind of, it's a good 2 to 4 songs per, but a solo album, she's gonna have half. And I think that my kids make it in there too, in the way that I think it's just sort of the natural course of songwriting when your life really outside of your career is your family all the time. It's gonna be what you're thinking about.
You're bringing your family into your life more and more. I mean, I saw the video of you and your daughter up there. Are both your kids like wanting to be musicians? Are they on their way to being musicians?
Both of them definitely dabble in different aspects of being musicians and being interested in music, and appear to have sort of talent in a lot of different areas where it's almost kind of like, well, whatever you decide you want to do, you can do.
Right.
And my feeling is support them more in those areas where they want to do something.
Have you turned into the old guy who's like, damn kids and your damn music?
No.
Whatever they're listening to,
No. I recently watched this news report on CNN about parents and their teenagers with the internet and handheld devices and different ways of communicating through the internet and social media and that kind of stuff. And what was weird is a lot of these parents were younger than me, and a lot of them had no knowledge of what their kids do and what music they listen to and like what their social media is. And I felt like, well, I'm actually sort of all over that. And I'm all over what they do, and I'm all over what they listen to, and we're all over sort of how they interact and what they say. And I feel like I'm kind of in step with them, and I haven't really pointed them in any direction in terms of what I think they should appreciate artistically, because I think that's a big mistake.
Sure, that's because they'll rebel against that. That's what
you're going to get the opposite.
Like mine's still young enough. Mine's 8, so he's like, he's okay with me.
Yeah.
Kind of. And I just kind of nudge it in there a little bit,
The only thing I ever did was when I heard, and I don't remember what it was. It was Pandora or Spotify or something. My son was listening to what sounded like AC/DC songs from the other room, and I thought, I was listening to AC/DC. He chose that, and I thought, that's great. And then I thought, wait a minute, that's awful. And I went and I looked, and it wasn't, because they didn't license it.
Yeah.
So it was like LA Guns or something. It was some LA rock band doing their whole catalog. And so I had an iPod full of thousands of songs, and I just gave it to him, and I said,
here you go.
You gotta listen to the right stuff. And but no, I think they exposed me to things that I otherwise would not.
Yeah.
It wouldn't come across my plate. It just wouldn't. And so I think there's an exchange that happens. And I think that for me, at least, being a musician, I can connect to almost anything. But I'm still going to have that.
Sure.
I think I have that in the context of analog music versus digital music, and performing musicians versus people performing to track and sort of ghosting their own performance on stage and all that kind of stuff. I don't get it. That doesn't draw me in. If I don't hear sort of the humanity to a performance on an album, it just doesn't draw me in. Yeah. And it's not a decision that I've made. As much as it is just it's something that happens or doesn't. So I have that, I have that kind of nostalgic desire to want to hear analog recorded music and live performances in a studio where you feel it from beginning to end as one performance instead of something that's been edited in a computer after the fact.
It's a lost
Which,
art.
by the way, I can hear that screams at me, those edits and how they're edited. And
you can hear that, you know.
Yeah.
Some of us not. But I try not to get too hard on that either, because it's like, what was I listening to at that time that was so out of touch with, you know, a purist before me or something like that?
Sure.
Like, so, I'm the same way. I try not to put them down too much. I just don't listen to it myself.
Well, it doesn't. It's not something that's attracted me, and some, like, I remember really liking industrial music as in my late teens and early 20s, and there was something about it. It was a new kind of visceral music to me, and the content was very aggressive and kind of scary, and it was exciting. And I still think some of that music can be really exciting, and I still think that a lot of electronic music can be exciting, but it's not going to beat something that I get an emotional connection with. And I'm not going to get that without sort of just hearing what feels like a person in a room or people in a room.
Sure. And I was about to say, my only argument was you put a really great vocalist on it, you know, who's really given his heart, whatever it is, and skirt that in on the electronics. Like, you can have some soul in there.
I think that's missing. I think that that people swallow the whole pill instead of just biting a piece of it off. When I was making the album with Timbaland, I was in the studio and they were going through a hard drive of a bunch of stuff that he had done that was just catalog stuff that had never been released, and there were songs that he was singing on, and they hadn't touched his vocals or edited it at all, you know. So it was just really raw. And I thought that was some of the coolest sounding stuff I'd ever heard him do, and I was telling them,
use that.
That is what you got to put out. And they're looking at me like I'm nuts, because they're very much into a world of electronic post, you know, kind of has to do a certain thing, and I understand it, but it's different. It's a different world in some ways. I also think, though, that there's always scenes of purists. Always. So, you know, you can find that. Whatever you really want is out there.
You going to be on the campaign trail this time? I've been interested in that, to kind of see if you're going to be doing that. You did, you know, with Obama the last couple times, and I thought...
Yeah, you know, there was this... It depends. It depends on what it feels like to me. I felt like with Obama, there was a certain amount of fear in regard to, like, what would happen if he didn't win. You know, it felt almost like there was a damage control scenario there, and I think I'm sort of, in a lot of ways, that's how my thinking works when it comes to politics and when it comes to elections. It's like, okay, who's going to get nominated, and then, you know, what is the sort of the lesser of two evils in a way. And I think with Obama, it was very clear. There was no confusion in regard to that, and you know, we'll see how things play out now. But this is not something. There's nobody that's inspiring me, really.
It's pretty wacky out there.
Yeah, I also in sort of paying attention in the last 8 years, and really focusing on how events have taken place. I feel like it's going to take a lot more than any particular administration to make any real change, and I'm not sure, you know, other than barring some sort of breakdown in how this country is run, which is probably going to have to be a financial one, that you're going to see any real effective change. I think it's this constant sort of push me, pull you scenario that just keeps living on, and we keep sort of scotch taping everything together, and at some point it isn't going to work.
I just think people are lazy.
I think they are too.
Yeah. That's the unfortunate thing. I really, really do love Higher Truth. I know we didn't get to talk about it as much as I wanted to, but it's a beautiful record. You've really exceeded past.
Thank you.
All the things. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I put a lot into it. It took 2.5 years or so to write, maybe a little more.
You can tell.
Yeah. I did a lot in between then, but I think that really helped. I think that being able to take a couple months away from it while I'd be on tour with Soundgarden or touring for myself or whatever I was doing would allow me to come back with fresh ears. And it was something where I had to kind of reinvent myself as a songwriter in a lot of ways to make the whole thing work.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Trying to find a nice wrap-up point there. The man can talk, and I love it. So he makes it easy. Thank you, sir. A natural conversation, just like we would ever have anywhere else. Yeah, appreciate it. Now the ride back to Louisville.